Hello everyone, welcome back to Paranormal Contact. Something a bit different today. We normally do ghost hunting, but we try and look at all things paranormal. Today I wanted to do a little video for you about UFOs. So both myself and Dave from Paranormal Contact, we live in Wiltshire. And over the years, there's been quite a lot of UFO sightings, etc., in the Wiltshire area. We're not far from Warminster. In the 60s, this was a really famous area for UFOs. And we're also not far from a place called Alton Barnes, which had its share of crop circles and associated UFOs in the early 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, and continuing through to today. I don't want to dwell too long on crop circles. That'll probably be another video. We've done a couple of videos on crop circles. I just wanted to talk to you about the UFO phenomenon, I guess. So, how far back do UFOs go? Well, you can trace them right back. I suppose if you look at the ancient alien concept, and yeah, I watch some of that on the TV, I expect you guys do as well, you will see pictures of cavemen's drawings or ancient people's drawings that they've done, and they interpret some of these as people coming down from the sky, and they're possibly aliens, and they would have come down on ships. I don't know if that's true. I'd like to think it is, but I'm not sure. I don't think that can be proved at this present time. But there are certainly, if you go back as far as maybe the 12th century, I guess, there are drawings and written down accounts of UFOs. There's a famous woodcut from, I think it's Nuremberg, and it depicts some strange things going on in the sky. I'll put a picture of that up in a second and you can take a look. There seems to be crosses and things in the sky there, and there's lights, and the associated text with it talks about there being these huge things in the sky. Now, did they just see a meteor shower back then, or did they see something else in the sky? Was it some phenomenon perhaps we've never witnessed that they saw? I don't know, but that sort of just goes to show that for years we have been looking up at the sky in wonder. I guess it's that wanting to know of where we came from, if we're just stuck on this planet, or whether we perhaps started life on another planet and have come to here, and some of that history's been lost. I don't know. But talking a little bit around here, as you look through history, we live quite close to Stonehenge and Avebury, and again, all of these ancient sites seem to have associated lights in the sky or UFO stories that go along with them. Back in the 80s, when I was a younger man, I spent a lot of time sitting on hills, star watching, here and at Warminster on Clay Hill, or looking out across to Clay Hill. I saw some interesting things. I think during it was the late 80s, early 90s, when the military were doing some tests on some different types of planes. I've forgotten their names now, but there was I think it was a B-52 bomber or something like that. I can't remember the names. I'll put that in a minute when I remember it. And I remember seeing some triangular shaped lights going over a hill really close to me, really close to my head, and I could feel the wind from whatever that was. I think now it probably was one of those planes. The only mystery for me still is there was no noise, and I would have thought if it was travelling that fast it would have made some noise. If it was travelling at supersonic speed, you'd have had a what do you call it, a supersonic bang to go with it, but there was nothing. So I don't know. And then, of course, there's the theory that everything gets sort of debunked and muddled deliberately by the authorities to try and make it really difficult for anyone to prove if this phenomena is real. And that's certainly been going on for a long, long time. And looking at some of the stuff that's coming out in America right now, the American Senate, there's just recently this year been a meeting, the American Senate, and people within the American government now are asking questions and starting to take this a little bit more seriously, and saying that if there is something there, we should be told. And I think the problem is over the years that this has been going on in all countries, our country, America, lots of other countries, where it's been denied, you don't know what the truth is now. Even if someone tells you it's the truth, you don't know what to believe it because they've already told you it wasn't the truth. These people are our government. We should be able to trust them, yet they felt the need to lie to us. They will say it's for national security or whatever, and that people would be so terrified if they knew there was aliens or UFOs coming to our planet. I'm not so sure we would now in this day and age. We'd want to know more. We'd be very curious. We'd want to know what their motives were for coming here. Were they good or bad? But maybe, as is another theory, that the government has been in cahoots with these aliens and peoples and things that come here for a long time, and they have allowed them to do certain things, perhaps do testing on us, maybe. And it would be very difficult for our governments to openly admit that they'd allowed that to happen. We just wouldn't accept that. We could never trust them on anything again, could we, if that was the case? So it's quite a deep, in-depth story, the story of UFOs. I guess it's not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm not going to try and sensationalise it. There's lots of things that have happened over the years. 90% of UFO stories, UFO theories can be debunked, and that is the truth. 90% of things can be explained. There are things that appear in the sky that we're not used to seeing. As well as having the old ancient sites here, we've got Salisbury Plain, which is a military testing area very close to us here as well. I literally live on the borders of that. And we'll often see helicopters flying around late at night, we'll often have flares and different lights going up in the sky. So I'm used to seeing all of that type of stuff. But I've also seen many people's pictures and videos where they've seen that for the first time and thought it's a UFO. They're quite clearly not, and with a little bit of investigation, a little bit of looking, you can easily prove that they're not. So, yeah, I mean, moving on through history, as the 1960s was an interesting time around this part of the world. So we had the what they called the Warminster UFO flap. So lots and lots of sightings around at that time. I think it started on Christmas Eve, something like 1960. I'm guessing around 62, 63, might have been as late as 64. And that carried on for most of the 60s and even into the early 70s, and really even in the 80s, there were still people watching for UFOs around that area, and still today. Now, the interesting thing about that was there was a strange noise that went along with that. And again, Warminster's a military town. It's on the edges of Salisbury Plain. Were the military testing something there that they didn't want to discuss with anybody at that time, and they've kept it secret ever since? I don't know. I've read lots of books about that. I've spoken to some of the people who were there and were in those books. and they've said they certainly saw some strange things up on those hills around Warminster at that time. I don't know. It's hard to prove these things one way or another. So I think bringing it into sort of the modern times, 80s and 90s, crop circles really started to appear in earnest around here. They were associated with UFOs. I certainly know for a fact that some crop circles are made by human beings. I know people who have made crop circles. But there was a thing when it all started. So my family worked on farms and stuff around here locally. And I can remember when I was a very young child, my brothers and my father coming home and saying there were some marks in the crops in a field, miles from anywhere. Remember, this is back in a time there was no mobile phones, there was no means of communication like there is now. Communication was very different. And the only people really who went over into those cornfields were the farmers, the people who were working that land and growing the crops there. So what would have been the point of anyone at that time going there and making some big circles in the corn? I don't know. I don't think that there would have been much point. The ones now are beautiful. They're amazing works of art. Again, I don't know if they're real, if they're UFO, if that's been made by mankind or whether that's been made by aliens. I just don't know. My guess is it's mankind, the majority of them, because that's the logical thing to think. And we're pretty clever. And I've seen some guys make some fantastic pictograms in fields that you just think were impossible. However, there have been cases where people have been flying over the area in helicopters or perhaps in light planes, just filming, and they've travelled in one direction to go to somewhere, come back half an hour, 3/4 an hour later, and there's a whole crop circle appeared in a field. That seems unlikely that would happen. Really unlikely. Now, could be that the people who've said this and done this are all involved in the conspiracy of making people believe crop circles are real. I don't know. It's an interesting topic. It's interesting to see them. I'd love to see one appearing in front of my eyes myself. I've always wished for that. I'd love to actually see an alien for myself. As yet, I haven't. Probably the same with ghosts and all of these things. Unless you physically witness it yourself, I think it's healthy to remain sceptical about most of it. But I'm going off track a bit. We're supposed to be talking about UFOs. So, where do they come from? Where do people think they come from? So, obviously, there's the belief that they come from other planets to this planet. There's the belief that maybe the hollow earth theory, that there are UFOs coming out of the earth and coming into this realm, and there's a whole nother world in the earth. There's a belief that they're from under the sea. They've been spotted many times around areas over the sea, and they've just gone straight into the sea and disappeared. Maybe they can survive in that deep water in the sea. Maybe that's no more difficult for them to move around in than the rest of our atmosphere. Then there's theories that they're interdimensional beings. They're here all the time, but they can travel between the different dimensions. So much to think about. And I don't know. I'd be interested to see what you guys out there think of all of this stuff. As I say, I've been looking at it for years in wonderment and thinking, well, how do you prove it? How do you investigate it? You can go and take a look at a crop circle. Many people did, and they've had theories that there were certain bends and things in bits of corn, that it was bent over in a certain way. I've looked at sort of that myself. Maybe there's some truth to that. But once you see a UFO, you see it. It's there, and it's gone. There's not much. You can get a picture. You might get a video if you're lucky. There's a lot of them out there. So I do think there's something going on with the UFOs, and especially around this area where we live. It's funny that it's always quite closely associated with the military, though, and I think there might be something to that. It could be military testing things and gauging our reaction as to what they see and what happens there. Modern times, UFOs now. So with everything that's going on in America, and with all the amount of phones and cameras that people have got, literally everyone's got a phone. Literally everyone can pull that phone out and take a picture these days. So you'd think by now we'd have some really good pictures of UFOs. We haven't. It's nothing exceptional. There is a couple of pictures now that have been taken by the military. This is what's caused the debate in the Senate in America. They're still pretty blurry. There's nothing really defining on them. Different people have looked at them and analysed them and said they're definitely not fakes. These are real pictures. Okay, but were they chasing something that we've made? Were they even in the dark about what they were chasing? Have we developed something that's been put out there and they were testing our pilots with it? Oh, there's just so much. So many possibilities. But the thing for me is, I love the paranormal. I love looking into these things. I love trying to find out what I can find out. I love hearing other people's opinions on it. I like just getting in the car and driving out at night and looking at all the stars and seeing something moving in the night sky and thinking that could be a UFO. That could be aliens up there right now looking down at me. Truthfully, I don't think I'll ever know. Maybe future generations might find something out, but I sort of feel like it'll always be a mystery. I'd love for that to be wrong, and I'd love for something to happen that would bring it all into perspective, and there could be a proper public debate about it. But I don't really think that's going to happen. Myself and Dave have sat and chatted about this, and I know I've probably piqued his interest a little bit with UFOs and made him go and just do a bit of investigation himself and look at things, and he's got a little bit of interest in it now as well. And it's a massively intriguing subject. I wish I had some groundbreaking information to put on here that I could give you. I could tell you stories of UFOs I've seen. I could tell you lots of things about things that have happened when we've been out watching for UFOs, etc. There's no proof as yet. Or if there is, it's been well hidden and nobody's ever going to see it at this point in time. So I think that's it really. This was just a little chat, nothing too heavy, I hope, for you. I hope you've enjoyed just listening to me ramble on for 15-20 minutes about UFOs. If you've enjoyed this, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know as well. We're just trying a few new things on the channel at the moment. We've done a few chats and podcasts before. Sometimes people have really taken to them, sometimes they haven't. I really hope you've enjoyed this one. So from me at Paranormal Contact, I'd like to just say thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for listening. And please keep coming back. Keep telling us what we're doing right. Keep telling us what we're doing wrong. And I really look forward to seeing you all again in the future. Take care now. Have a great day, whatever you're doing. Bye.